सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। नमः श्री शंकरानंद।
नमः श्री शंकरानंद।
गुरुपादाम्बुजन्मने
गुरुपादाम्बुजन्मने
सविलास महामोह
सविलास महामोह
ग्राह ग्रासैक कर्मणे। So we'll chant 4 verses, 43, 44, 45 and 46. Number 43. Paraparatmanorevam युक्त्या संभावितैकता तत्त्वमस्यादिवाक्यैः सा भागत्यागेन लक्ष्यते। जगतो यदुपादानं माया मादाय तामसी निमित्तं शुद्ध सत्वां ताम् उच्यते ब्रह्मतात् गिरा। उच्यते ब्रह्म तद्गिरा। यदा मलिनसत्त्वां ताम् कामकर्मादिदूषिताम् आदत्ते तत्परं ब्रह्म त्वं पदेन तदोच्यते। त्रितयीम् अपि तां मुक्त्वा परस्परविरोधिनीम् अखण्डं सच्चिदानन्दम् महावाक्येन लक्ष्यते। So the flow of these verses, the ideas contained in that took a turn on verse number 43, if you recall, and took a turn because up until that time the para and apara atmanoho evam ekata, the identity between Jivatma and Paramatma. So para and apara atma. Para atma is the Paramatma, and apara atma is the Jivatma. So the identity between them was explained by logic. Yuktya sambhavita. And the logic was that, and the logic is not abandoned, it is somewhat incomplete. So the logic was that only when you have satyam, which is non-changing, compared to that the anityam, which is changing, is the one which is not yourself. So those kinds of logics were used. But then this is incomplete because it has to be completed by the Mahavakya, which is Tattvamasi. So the the text takes a turn now towards moving to the Mahavakya analysis. And why that is necessary is also being talked about, and this is talked about through the word lakshyate. Lakshana vakyena lakshyate. So I think this is an important thing. One thing I might suggest to you, for you to consolidate, I may have even talked about it that before also, but just to reiterate it, one thing that would be good for you to do to consolidate the knowledge contained in here, in these 65 verses. So this is good because it's an advanced introduction. And I would very much encourage you to actually find some friend or someone and teach it to them, because it will solidify your own understanding of what it is. And in order to solidify your own understanding, what I would suggest very much is what you might want to do is, the translations are here, which are pretty good. They are done by Swami Dayananji's students and so on. So this is really not, these are pretty good translations. Well, what you may want to do is to write two things for yourself for each one of these verses. So you may want to think about doing that. I suggested very strongly that for you to consolidate the knowledge contained in these two steps will be very helpful to you. What are the two steps? One step is that you summarize what the main meaning of the verse is. Write it down. And this is done, if you look at the literature, this is a very important, a very commonly done thing. So for example, you can say Satyatvam. Satyatvam means that this particular, I'm just giving an example, that this particular verse talks about the beingness, the truthness. This is what it focuses on. And you can deduce it from, you can actually, in fact they are given in lots of books also, you can even copy that to see what the meaning is. So if not there, then you can just develop it on your own. You can send it to me. I will gladly give you some comments about it. So this is one of the two steps. Okay. The second thing that you may want to do is to write the connections between verses. So two things. One is the central theme of the verse, and the second one is what is the connection from one to the other. So for example, I just talked about the turn that the text takes. This is the connection. This is the connection. So I think if you did that, because really all of these, as I've mentioned many times before to you, are really dots on the page, and you need to develop an outline. And the development of the outline, by connecting the dots, you have a kind of a sketch. You have a sketch of what it looks like, what the meaning is, and so on. Then the sketch can be filled in with your analysis, your thoughts, your mananam, questions, answers, doubts, examples, and so on. And that fills up the sketch with a painting. And so at the end of that, you have really a live-looking painting, which is as good as the person. And so I think that this is a good thing to do. But in order to do the sketch, you have to see the flow of it, as I've been mentioning it before, that a person like Swami Vidyaranya has a very good vision of how this thing has to be unfolded. What is the problem? What is the method? What is the solution? What are the doubts that will be coming in? And so you need to appreciate it in order to really become as wise as you are capable of becoming. And so I highly suggest that you do that. Anyway, so going back to this, here the text takes a turn, as I mentioned, that in addition to the logic that was presented before, now it is supplemented by a vakya. Vakya means a sentence which is necessary to be done. But you should see why that is necessary to be done. Why is the logic not enough? Why is the logic not enough? So there, this example of a new moon is a good one. So the new moon example is a good one because in a dusk where there is plenty of light, a new moon is not easy to see. So that exemplifies that under normal circumstances, our Atma is difficult to see. Not that it is not there. So that example also is a beautiful one. It's not as though you are pointing out a non-existing moon. No, the moon is existing, but difficult to see because of the circumstances. Maybe an hour later when it gets dark, then anybody can spot it. But at the time of the dusk, you can picture kind of like a grandfather and a grandson sitting on a cot outside the house in the warm weather. And the grandfather says, "Son, look, what a beautiful moon." And the fellow says, "Where? I don't see it." And he says, "Right there, it's behind the tree." He says, "I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't see it. I looked around all over." He says, "Okay, now, let's focus." So here, focus is an important thing that we will be talking more about. This is what is called ekagrata. So ekagrata means that it is there, Atma is there, the fullness is right here. Ayam Atma Brahma. As we saw in the Mandukya class also, the word Ayam is used. Ayam means this, right here. I think in this class also we have used it, I'm not sure. So it's right there. But because of certain pratibandhakas, it is not seen. And one of the pratibandhakas could be that the person doesn't have the glasses with them and they cannot see things that clearly away from them. Fine, so then you say, put your glasses on. You put your glasses on, you still can't see it. And the reason is that it is dusk. There's a lot of sunlight still around and the moon seems to be hidden. And so that example is a good one. So now comes what is the necessity for a Mahavakya. Why can't just logic give me the information? And so there it is said, one of the important things of that is the distinction between Vachyartha and Lakshyartha. So Vachyartha, this is one of those things, I think I'm going to have it next week. I will have this new tablet that Raj has suggested to me, which I just bought. And I think by Saturday I'll have it all set up. So I would like to write down Vachyartha and Lakshyartha. So you just does that. So from next week something like this will happen. But for now, Vachyartha and Lakshyartha are important to see why the Mahavakya spoken by a competent live teacher is essential for you to get a grasp of it. So this is not a complete picture, but it's a pretty important picture. So now go back to the moon example. In the moon example, what the person says is, okay, you can't see it, okay, let me follow my lead and focus as I tell you. So this youngster sitting there saying, okay, Grandpa, tell me, where is it? All right, do you see this tree? You see this tree, very obvious, isn't it? Yes, I see the tree. Okay, go to the left-hand side, and do you know there are two branches that are kind of angled towards the left-hand side, like this, like a V? And he says, yeah, I can see that. Okay, go to the tip of that, and the moon is between the two branches. Now, the statement that the moon is between the two branches is what is called Vachyartha. Because the moon is not really, cannot be between two branches. Two branches has like 18 inches between them. And the moon is like 1,000,000 miles or whatever. It doesn't make any sense. And so, so the very famous statement Swamiji Dayanandji was very fond of stating that. He says there were two friends sitting there, and one of the people in the village or in the town or something, was staggering, he was having some difficulty walking. And so the guy said, oh, here comes the white horse. And so this is called Vachyartha. There was no more horse coming, there was only a man coming. But here's a person who came from a happy hour, drinking the white horse whiskey. So then the other person also knew the context. You have to know the context. You have to know the context. Like for example, many of the adult jokes are like that. That sometimes if the youngster doesn't know the context, you can go ahead and say it and they will not get it. But if the person is like 11, 12 or 13, then the context becomes visible and you cannot tell an adult joke to them. That's not good because they will not understand. I mean, they will understand the context and what it means. And so similarly, in saying, you see the moon between the two branches is Vachyartha. Or do you see the white horse coming? Is it Vachyartha? Or what is really shown by the Vachyartha is Lakshyartha. What is indicated. And so the Vakya is essential, but you have to make a jump in the way understanding of that is. Very similarly to that is the Mahavakya. And the reason why the Mahavakya, this is the reason why Lakshyartha is necessary for understanding myself. You see, in the case of, in some other cases, like in the case of this person who is half drunk and he's staggering out of the happy hour saloon, Lakshyartha is not necessary. Because that person can say, here comes the person who I find gets drunk at this time. Again, this is the second time, third time I've seen him this week like this. Wow, what a poor guy. That's Vachyartha. So there, the resignation to a kind of a clever way of saying, here comes a white horse, was just making a joke out of it. It's not necessary. But in the case of Atma, Vachyartha will not work. Not possible for it to work. So we have to resort to Lakshyartha. Why? Why wouldn't the Atma be? Because Atma is not in front of you. It is not an object. It cannot be pointed out through our normal paraphernalia. Because our normal paraphernalia is, look at that person coming. Look at that beautiful waterfall. Can you hear the chirping of the birds? Like that. There are lots of indications where the normal paraphernalia of your ears, eyes, touch, smell, etc. are sufficient. What can we do? The Atma is not, it cannot be touched, it cannot be seen, it cannot be tasted, nothing. Ashabdam, arupam, etc., etc. Niravayam has no parts to it. Nirgunam has no guna of its own. No guna of its own. Why is Nirgunam is an important thing. It needs some thinking. What it means is that by itself it does not have any shape. By its virtue you can make shapes out of it. So clay, for example, in that sense, just in that example, is nirgunam. Clay does have some properties because it's an object, so we cannot carry the extension of the example too much. But in general, the clay by itself does not have its own shape, but it can be made into a shape. So nirgunam. So going back to the Atma is not susceptible to vachyartha. But it is susceptible to lakshyartha. Susceptible to all the lakshyartha. So there, as we saw in the example of the 10th man in the morning class, then neti iti adesha, na iti iti adesha. So this has to be seen through negation. Means that anything that you experience, you are not that. This is an important thing that we, in our viveka, in our vichara, in our thinking, we have to throw out anything. None of your experiences are useful except if you are capable of turning your mind by utilizing your experiences for drawing the conclusion that has been suggested by the Shastra. So, just stated in other ways, experiences can be extremely useful, but only if your primary focus is not the experience, but the experiencer of the experienced. And that is not easy to do. Even though it looks very easy, but your own mind just slips. I sometimes I visualize, and I think it's pretty accurate, that what happens is that in some cases, in some ways, not in some cases, in some ways, understanding the Atma is like climbing a very slippery slope. Because you know that you have to get there, but your mind slips down into something which you are used to. You have to provide hooks to yourself through work to be able to stabilize your climb from one hook to the other. Anyway, that's just an imagery. But going back to it, the reason that lakshyartha is necessary is because the Atma does not lend itself to be seen. That's why I say manasa na mantavyam. You cannot think it, but manasa eva mantavyam. It is a beautiful way of contradiction given by the Shastra, that you cannot think about the Atma, but you have to think about the Atma. Hey, what is this? This is very strange. No, it's not strange, because, as I explained before, your experiences are hooks that we have to utilize. That you see an experience, but instead of thinking about the experience, why is this, this is good, this is that, so on and so forth, you use the experience for understanding the mithyatvam of the world. Mithyatvam of the world. And the mithyatvam of the world comes from the logic. Para apara atmanoho evam yuktya sambhavita. And we'll do a lot of work on this. This is an important thing. And in the latter stages of Panchadashi, Swami Vidyaranya spends a lot of time discussing this in great detail. And again, Swami Maheshananji is just marvelous in even expounding the inherent nature of the meaning of the verses. And this is the way. This is the way we have to do it. A lot of very practical ways of looking at it. And so I'm just giving you one example of that, which is that no, it cannot be thought of. When Shastra says that Atma cannot be thought about, it is correct. It is not thought about in the normal way, vachyartha. But the experiences themselves can be extremely useful for you to do an analysis. How? Just to give you a quick example of this, and then we can go further. When you have an experience, you observe that the experience is changing as you speak. But you are not changing. This is the viveka that you have to do. And you have to practice this and get very good at it. Silently within yourself. You don't have to, nobody should be able to ask you, hey, what are you doing? No. Just do whatever you're doing. Don't disturb anyone. Except your drishti, your focus is not on the experience, but how the experience is not affecting you. And so that is the lakshyartha. You see, that's the neti, that is the lakshyartha, meaning that even though you cannot see yourself directly, but through the instructions of the Shastra, you can do a viveka, a separation between what is drishta nashta svabhava, jagat. This is an important thing we have to really get skilled at. The very definition of jagat. This is a beautiful creation of Ishvara, really. Ishvara's creation of jagat is absolutely marvelous. So the very definition of jagat is gacchati, jayate, gacchati iti. As it is born, it is gone. Born, gone, born, gone. Drishta nashta svabhava. And yet it looks very real. Anyway, there's a lot of work on this in Vidyaranya's later is just a sample of that. So anyway, so the Atma, just to close off that topic, the Atma means yourself. This is the difficulty of our recognizing the self. The difficulty is because we are very adept at recognizing forms and sounds, and that's all we are doing. And we have difficulty in understanding how can something be there and yet not be heard, not be seen. This is what we have to do. This is the lakshana. This is the lakshana. So, I mean, this is that example of the grandson who is being asked to look at the moon. If he simply looks at, his focus is not on the moon but just on the leaves, and he says, I don't see any moon. Not a good example because he will be looking at the moon and he can see it. But so the lakshana is an important one, that it has to be pointed out where words do not directly indicate it, but in between the words, the meaning of the words, you get the real meaning. The one which cannot be seen, and yet one who is the seer through which everything is seen. Kena Upanishad. Understanding all of that, then the Atma, the focus on the Atma starts to come in. Ekagrata. This is the skill, this is the mananam that we have to do. But first, the basics of that have to be very clear. And so the basics are given in here. So now we saw Tattvamasyaadi Vakyaihi sa Bhagatyagena Lakshyate. So in here also, in this example also, the Bhagatyaga can be seen in the case of the moon between the two branches. The left branch and the right branch is given up. In fact, once you see the moon, you don't see the tree at all. At first you only see the tree and not the moon. But if it is correctly pointed out, you only see the moon and not the tree. And so here, really speaking, this is exactly what our I wouldn't say challenge in that manner, but our objective is. The two branches are Paramatma, Parameshwara, Ishvara, and the Jiva. And so the Atma, which is in between these two, not literally in between them, but here the common element of between them, which is a lakshana. And the lakshana here is Bhagatyaga Lakshana. Bhagatyaga Lakshana means that you don't give up the two branches until you have grasped the moon. Then you give up all the other two meanings. So similarly here also, the understanding of Ishvara and the understanding of yourself, as we will come in the next two verses, has to be kept in mind. And then the common elements between them has to be grasped. This is the flow of the text. So let's be sensitive to that. Let's be awake to the subtle meanings of this. Even though it is just an example here, this will be expanded greatly in later chapters of it. Anyway, so that's number 43 that we actually did last week, but I just refreshed it for you. So now let's look at verse number 44, which is one of the two factors that we need to understand clearly, which is the Tatpada Vachya. Tatpada Vachya. So there Vachya can be used because it actually does have a form and a function and a role to play. which is visible. You can grasp it, you can see it, you can experience it. So anything that can be experienced is a suitable candidate for becoming a Vachyartha. So the Vachyartha, which exactly in that example is, do you see the left branch? Yes, I can see it. Like that. So the Tatpada Vachya is given in 44, then Tvampada Vachya is given in 45. So here Parameshwara is given in number 44 and the Jiva is given in 45. Then in 46, the identity is clarified. Already the identity will become quite obvious in 44, 45, but it is explicitly pointed out. So Asi. So Tat and Tvam and then Asi. So number 46 is the Asi and Tat Pada is 44 and Tvam Pada is 45. So let us see how. Jagataha yat upadanam mayam adaya tamasim nimittam shuddha sattvam tam uchyate brahma tatgira. So tatgira means by the word tat. By the word tat, Brahma, the Brahma's role as the cosmic entity, Samashti, is being pointed out. So let's look at the word meanings first and then we will put it together. So let's just even do one word at a time. Yat Brahma Tamasim Mayam Adaya. One, with the help of defining a tamas oriented Prakriti. The Prakriti is going to be explained in different forms. One of them is Tamasim. So the three gunas are tamas, sattva and rajas. All three will be talked about. And so the whole creation is just made out of these three gunas in various combinations. Just like, the body is made out of only a few things, bones, muscles. All the bodies are different, some are tall, some are short, etc. But the basic elements of all bodies remain the same. Similarly, the basic elements of the whole creation are the three gunas. And so out of them, the tamas aspect becomes the material cause of the jagat. Tamasim mayam adaya. Adaya here means to with the expression of the form of the jagat, which is the upadanam karanam, material cause. So let me go back to it. So yad brahma tamasim mayam adaya jagata upadanam bhavati. It becomes the material cause with the help of the tamas element of Maya. And then same thing, same Brahma, Shuddha Sattvam Adaya, you can add the word Adaya here, Nimitta Karanam Bhavati. It becomes the efficient cause or the creative cause that Brahman is mentioned by the word Tat. So let's revise it in the form of the sentence, full sentence itself, and then we will add our own understanding to it. So the Brahman, which having taken Prakriti with the predominant tamas as the upadhi, becomes the material cause of the creation, and which, having taken Maya as the efficient cause, is now denoted by the word Tat in Tattvamasi. So that's what is meant by Tat. Okay, so this is the thing. All right, so let's analyze this sentence, this verse. So one thing you should appreciate in the study of this Shastra, Advaita Shastra, the main strand of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta Shastra, is that we are absolutely unique in the entire world of thinking, where Ishvara, the Creator, is not only taken as the creative power, as the creator of the universe, but also as the material of the universe. This we should appreciate. This is an important thing for you to grasp. And it is because of this, it is because of the fact, you can take it negatively or positively. Let's look at negatively. It is because of the non-acceptance, non-appreciation, non-viewing of this, that all other schools of thought fall short in giving moksha to people. Just because of this fact. This is an incomplete picture. Including, by the way, not just the modern religions like Christianity and Islam and Buddhism and Jainism, all of them. Maybe Sikhism is an example because it is really born out of Hinduism. They have gone astray they have criticized some things and so on and so forth. So, but it's close to Hinduism. But all others, Buddhism for sure, Jainism for sure, all the modern ones, the Jewish, because they cannot accept the upadana karanatvam of Brahma. This should be very clear in your mind. And clear in the mind in the sense that you should study it and investigate it. I'm not asking you to just accept it or anything, but just keep this in mind. This is a very important thing. And this has huge implications because you will be questioned about this. How can you explain this? And all. You need to be ready with all the answers, and all of that will take a long time for you to be fully equipped with it. But the starting point is that this is the Jagataha Yat Upadana Karanam and Nimitta Karanam, Abhinna Nimitta Upadana Karanatvam is Brahma. And so, for example, I'm giving you a hint. If you were to write a short summary of this verse, like I suggested to you, just a one-liner, even a half a line, just kind of like a title, you'll say, Ishvara is both the material and the creative power of the world. Abhinna Nimitta Upadana Karanam Brahma. This is the title. And so it is not just the modern schools of thought, because in the annals of our own history, there has been lots of schools of thought that have created their own versions. The most famous of them is Sankhya philosophy, which looks so good on paper that a lot of people subscribe to it. I have a friend that I won't mention, who was very argumentative. He says his grandfather told him, forget about Vedanta, Sankhya is the one to go to. So he always has a feeling that you are on the wrong path. He also completely doesn't understand Sankhya, but he says that's the one we should study. And so, really speaking, the problem is that most people don't have the time to study any one of them thoroughly. In Vedanta Shastra, we spend as much time studying Sankhya and Yoga and Vishishta Yoga, Advaita and all that as they do. And so Yoga system, the Patanjali's Yoga is the same way. Patanjali's Yoga, they do not understand that it is the Abhinna Nimatta Upadana Karana. Everybody thinks it's just the Nimitta Karana. Not correct. Yoga system is not correct. Sankhya system is not correct. A lot of our own sidetrack people, they then look for example, the Sankhya system thinks that there is that Ishvara and there is unity. They also agree that there should be a unity between Ishvara and Jiva. But one of the things that is important for you to see that there is a thing called Pradhanam. And the Pradhanam is a Jadavastu. The Jadavastu, it is not endowed with Chaitanyam. This is where all the three gunas reside. That is one of the Sahakari Karanam for it. Absolutely not. No way. This is argued and discussed in great detail. And so this you should understand that so here Jagataha Yad Upadanam Maya Madaya Tamasim Nimittam Shuddha Sattvam Tam Ujjate Brahma Tatvira. Okay, so a couple of examples to do this. The very famous example is, of course, the spider, as you know very well, and also the dreamer. The dreamer is also a very good example. So the dreamer is the one which is, you are the dreamer, you are the creator of the dream, so you are the nimitta karanam, and you are also the material of the dream, upadana karanam. So that example is there. Swami Maheshananji gives another beautiful example. He says that suppose there is a person who is a poor person, and has a kind of a difficult existence. He doesn't have much money and so on and so forth. And life is harsh on that person. So what happens in many of these cases is that in order to escape the harshness of their life's reality, they take to drinking. Because certainly the full force of the mind is attenuated, and you become inebriated for a while, and you feel, something. So Swamiji gave this example that this poor guy, he got a full lota, and lota is a big vessel, and we all know, I'm from India, what a lota is. So kind of imagine a kind of very large tumbler. He got a large lota full of bhang, liquid marijuana, and he drank it. And slowly, because he wanted to escape. And at the end of that, he said, I am a rich man. What he was imagining, which he could never be. Mukesh Ambani, or something like that. Our own local hero, who makes a lot of. Mukesh Ambani's father was a good friend and a close associated with my maternal uncle in Amritsar. they both started close to each other in the clothing business. And much before his sons became famous, when I was much younger, he used to tell me that my friend, forget his father's name, Dhirubhai Ambani. He says, Dhirubhai, so my Yashpal Mehra, this is my uncle, so he also got into the politics of the yarn industry. So they formed an association and they were building, common things and so on, all of that. So my uncle was also in the clothing business, not clothing but cloth business, And Dhirubhai was also there. So he used to tell me even then that this guy is so aggressive, he's going to do very well. And sure enough, he left Amritsar, he went to Bombay, made a name for himself, and now his sons are just... Anyway, going back to the, has no relevance to the story. So this poor fellow took a lota full of bhang and said, I am Mukesh Ambani and I have this 27-story building in Bombay and I have so many cars. He's imagining all of this and very clear in his mind, all the things that he perhaps had dreamt about have become fixed. And he's very very detailed about it. He knew the holdings and so on and so forth. And everybody else was saying, yes, you're right, that's what you are. That's what they also, some I drank also, not as much as he was. But he just went on and on for an hour and a half, 2 hours. He just said, I am so happy, I've got so much money, I've got drivers, this, that or the other. So Swamiji says, look at this example. So here, this fellow created an image of becoming a very rich man. And the material that he used to create that was the bhang in the lota. So he himself, and he's imbibed that. It's become part of his body. So his I-ness is that, and really the bhang has given him some flight to his mind. So it's a very interesting situation. He's the creator and he's the body of something which is false. And the funny part is the others don't consider him to be Mukesh Ambani. He himself thinks I am Mukesh Ambani. Very similar to is the case of our estimation in the reverse case that we are a Jivatma. We are a Jivatma. And this is the kind of Jivatma I am. I'm born in India, then I came to the US, and now I'm here and I'm doing this. This is as false as this guy thinking that I am. Why is it false? Because this is not the reality. That's not me. It is something where I have taken on the bhang of Maya. Maya has given me such a strong inebriation. It's such an alcohol that I cannot think through any of this. I've convinced myself. And also, I have come here by myself. At least in the case of this guy, all it took was 1 hour of bhang. And in a couple of hours, he'll be back, okay, out of that. But it's taken us many, many janmas to become who we are. And we have fully convinced ourselves this is who we are. So this example that Swami Vaishnaji gives is the example of abhinna nimitta upadana karanat. I am the one who created my own image. Yes, due to some ignorance. Yes, due to some bhang. But I have become the very material that I am trying to be. So here now one interesting thing is that the material that this fellow was inebriated through was bhang, marijuana. That is the material. Our material is Maya. The Maya is our material cause. And how? Because through the tamas aspect of the Maya, it becomes visible to us and it creates a duality between me and the rest of the world. So when I take myself to be a body, and I also take the rest of the world to be full of bodies, I'm only dealing with bodies, forms, people. So this is the material which has created in me a false identification. Just like the bhang is the material that created the false identification of this drunkard. Similarly, the tamas aspect of Maya has become the material for me. This is what is being pointed out here. He says, Jagataha yad upadanam mayam adaya tamasim. So in the abhinna nimitta upadana karanam, in the in the case of the, if you go back to the to a spider, okay, the spider, the body of the spider becomes the material of this jala that he creates, and his creative power of creating the various jala of the spider comes from the nimitta shuddha sattva, which is the second line. So he says, look at this is a nice thing to see. The same person creates something, and he creates something from his own material, his or her own material. So this is true of the spider, it is true of the dreamer, it is true of this drunkard. So the drunk decided to get drunk. Nobody asked him to do that. He decided, I'm just going to get drunk. I can't stand this. For a while I just want to be floating in the air. He's the designer of his own self. And he inebriates it, that he becomes his own material. Beautiful example. So here our thinking is that it is when we take a birth in this universe, in a way, I'm helpless because I don't know where else to go. And so I decide, okay, this is the best I can do. And so I take the help of the material of the Maya and create a whole scene around myself. And that scene also gives me a certain specificity of this is the kind of body I will be, and so on. This becomes the material. And it is your karma. You're the creator. And the good thing is that it's all false, in the sense that you are neither the material nor the creator. As the Sakshi, you are independent of both of them. Anyway, so here in the Tatpada, Tatpada means pertaining to Parameshwara, both the Upadana Karanam, which is Tamaseen, and Nimitta Karanam, which is Shuddha Sattva. So Shuddha Sattva means that this is the Sattva Guna of the Maya that creates the whole thing. So our mind is the Sattva Guna. When we're creating something, when we're creating a picture, then the thinking and the mind, and the subtlety of it, the ideas, the software, is the Shuddha Sattva, is the Sattva Guna. And then the creation of something through the material that needs some help from others and so on in this case, but can be done yourself through the dream, becomes the material of it. So the same person has both the Shuddha Sattva as well as the Tamasic Sattva. That is what being talked about. This aspect of Ishvara is called Tatpada. So this is the Tatpada. Let's see if there are some other points that Swamiji brought up that I want to bring before we go to the next one. Yeah, one interesting thing to point out, this word Tamasim doesn't mean that the other gunas are not there. So there is always a mixture of the gunas. It's not pure tamas and pure sattva and pure rajas. Any creation has all of them. But it is called tamasim because it is preponderantly tamas. For Swami Maheswaranji's, his examples are just absolutely marvelous. He says, look, supposing there is an army, like for example this Kargil war. The Kargil war, it was a very serious war, I tell you. It could have gone in and really the sacrifice of a lot of our Javans and our people that really saved a protracted war, which could have led to a nuclear thing. Anyway, in the Kargil war, it was very triumphant. And there was a great joy in the victory, like in all the other Pakistani wars also and so on. Great. So the primary leftover thing was joy, rejoicing. Even though some of the people got killed, and there was sorrow for them, especially for the families whose boys and girls got carried. But overall, there is joy. Because you say, yes, they gave their sacrifices and they're definitely going to go to heaven. No question about that. So thank them very much, but we are very happy that we won. So similarly, so the Tamasim, he says, it's not as though the other types of gunas are not there, but the primary one, just like it was Ananda in the case of Kargil war, the Ananda is replaced here by Tamasi. So that's why no one should take pot shots at this. And he says, how can this be Tamasim? Because there is so for example, any movement in the world, any movement is really rajasic. Yeah, so but not quibble about it. It means primarily tamas. Primarily tamasine because it is visible, easy to see. It has a form, color, and so on and so forth. That's why tamasine. So that was one of the things he pointed out. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the 43. So this is done. I think this part is okay. Yeah, I think we pretty much covered it. So he simply reminds us that please see that the Jagataha Upadana Karanam, Shuddha Sattvak Nimitta Karanam, etc. is all due to Upadhis of the Ishvara. Upadhi of the Ishvara. And so another way of looking at this, which is described, is that the Jagataha Utpatti, then Laya, and the existence of that, the one who governs that is the Upadhi of the Ishvara. When should it be? When should the night be? When should day be? A very beautiful creation when you think about it. That all of a sudden you now suspend all activities and you hit the bed and just go to sleep. So I was just talking to my granddaughter just now, about an hour, 2 hours ago. So she belongs to, my son belongs to a club when they have swimming for the kids. So my granddaughter had a swimming day, and then they had this sleepover for the swimming team. Sleepover for the swimming team. They have different, they make, it's good. So, in fact, my wife and I dropped Arya at the swim club at 8 o'clock at night. And so my son was visiting his wife's parents. So he says, I'll pick them up in the morning, you just drop them. So this afternoon I was asking Arya, I says, Arya, what time did you guys go to sleep? She says, well, 2 o'clock. I said, no, really tell me, this 12-year-old girl, I have never stayed up until 2 o'clock. I said, how can that be? She says, well, first we did swimming until 9:45. Then we had marshmallow, we were, putting that in the fire. And then we played ping pong for half hour. And then we told stories. So by this time it was midnight. And then people were saying, okay, some people were getting tired. But there was still so much noise and this, that, or the other. And the last time I saw the clock, it was 2 o'clock. But it's amazing how Ishvara has really just done this. That you are so active during the day, but then you hit the bed and you're now conked out. There's a big separation between the previous day and this day. This is how he must have said. Let people sleep for some time and then wake up. And half of the people are asleep here, the other half is asleep on the other side. So just how the rotation is made. My God, what design behind all of this. And seasons. It's a beautiful thing, honestly. Anyway, so the Jagat Utpatti, Vinasha, and the word for keeping it going on is all done by Ishvara. So this is the Upadhi of the Ishvara. Then let's quickly go to number 45, and we won't go to number 46 today, we won't have enough time. So let's quickly do that number 45. Number 45 says, now this is Tvam Padena Tada Uchyate. So Tat Param Brahma. Tat Param Brahma, the same limitless Brahman, Yada. So Yada here doesn't mean by time, but here means the state. It's not a time here. It's not as though before that there is no Jiva. This is Jiva, Jiva Paratvam. So it doesn't mean that before that there is no Jiva. Jiva has always been there, So yada tada here means just in the form of the jiva, that's all. Yada malina sattvam. No, actually let's look at this, follow the word translations. Tat param brahma yada tam kama karmadi dushitam. When contaminated by the desire and action, malina sattvam adate. So malina sattva means one which is impure sattva, dirty sattva, really. So dirtier, impure sattva, when that happens, then tada tvam-padena uchyate. Then it becomes, so this is how a jiva becomes. So here, remember this. Same Param Brahma that appears as Upadana Karanam through Tamasim, predominantly Tamasim, and Shuddha Sattvam as Ishvara, same one through Malina Sattva becomes the Jiva. Same person. Same person. It's not as though it's not as though the Jiva is completely different from Ishvara. And the sooner you start to get used to this idea, the better off you will be. That really so the Malina Sattva here, just because I'm running a little bit of time, so we'll have to probably complete it in more detail next time. But the Malina Sattva means the impurity of the mind, because the relative purity of the mind is the creator of the whole universe, and the relative impurity of the mind makes us limited as individuals. Same thing, not any different. As I think we have talked about this in some detail before, but just look at these are all as hints towards how to move forward. What we are saying is that antakarana ashuddhi, the dirtiness, the impurity of the mind. We say the normal thing you say is the antakarana vishuddhi. Look at all the books and so on. You will say the antakarana ashuddhi means what? Ragadvesha. Remove your ragadvesha. Minimize it. This is true, but not really that helpful. I cannot remove my ragadvesha. A much better way to describe the shuddhi versus ashuddhi, relevant in this context also, but even separately from it, a much more relevant way, a better way to describe ashuddhi versus shuddhi is, ashuddhi means that I am very involved with experiences. Shuddhi means I have enough wisdom to dwell on the experiencer, not the experienced, as we were discussing earlier. This is the bifurcation between ashuddhi and so this fact is brought up here very nicely, and we will discuss it in a bit more detail next time. But pretty much this is the central theme. Yada malina sattvam tama kama karmadi dushita. So this is the dushita, means that this is the defect that should be very apparent to us, that my life is primarily dictated by kama and karma. Kama and karma. Kama and karma. So the kamana, and then the result of this we will study a little bit more next week. But anyway, this is what characterizes the individual person. Otherwise, this is what is called Tvampadena Tada Uchyate. So these are the two branches. One branch was Tatpada, and the other one is Tvampada. And the reality is something in between, which will be described in verse number 46 in more detail. But we have a little bit more explanation to do in verse number 45 also before we get there. So with that, we'll close today's class. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityo Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om. Questions? Yeah.
So, Brahma is Nirguna Brahma. I'm kind of confused at the transition of verse 44. Brahma being Nirguna Brahma with the Upadhi.
Yeah, so the Nirguna Brahma means that's the one which is neither big nor small, so like an ocean. So just to give an example, there the water is the Nirguna ocean, which is not the ocean, it's just water. But from a standpoint of the oceanness, it is the whole ocean. Or from the standpoint of a given single one or two waves, it is a smallness. So it is Tatpada Vachya is ocean, Tvampada Vachya is the wave, and Lakshya between them is the water, which is neither big nor small, it is common to both of them, something like that. Yeah.
Go back to the original thinking that where did the impurity arise?
Where does the water rise, sorry?
In a way, like in the Christianity, they call it the original sin.
Yeah.
So and of course, there were these laws when first created, everybody was perfect. And those Santal, Sanatan, and all these people were perfect. And they had to introduce some amount of this desire, etc., to bring in an element of creation. And that's how they explain it in the Puranas. So the question is, why did that initial desire, how did that initial desire of limited?
Yeah, but this is not this Purana business, I don't know. Sometimes it does not accurately reflect. This is not the reality, that it is a perfect world and desires were introduced. None of this is true, not the Vedantic view.
But why, if you just take the creation, and you said
So,
these are no fault, you should be, how did this?
so you're saying that why, so your question is, why is there creation? Is that right?
No, the creation, why is that this difference between the limitation and the unlimitation? Unlimited, that why are we not feeling that from, why are we not feeling, why are we limited?
Yes, that's exactly right. We should ask you, why are you feeling limited? You shouldn't feel limited. You answered that. You don't ask me the question. I don't feel limited. I mean, I'm just giving you the example. But no, the thing is that the reality of the world is unlimitedness, Advaita. But due to the non-understanding, there is a sense of Dvaita. So the sense of Dvaita is just a pratiti. It is just a way of looking at it. It's like, the rope and the snake. It's like asking, why could you think of it as it's not a snake, it's a rope. Why why would you think that? He said, I have no idea, but this is what I saw. So the vision of snake is a pratiti, it is not truth, in that example. So similarly here also, a completeness, unlimitedness of the whole non-creation. There's actually no creation whatsoever. Creation is just a way of describing our experiences, is the truth. And seeing it as a creation, which means only seeing it as a creation, which means duality, because every creation requires more than one, then that is the whole play. And it's always been like this. And so our eventual goal is to see the truth of this whole creation, which is Nirguna Brahma. And by seeing that, you find that you yourself are the Nirguna Brahma. This is what we have to see. Yeah, something like that.
But at the so-called, I know this you may say it's the unreal level, but the real level of life.
Right. So we don't say non-real in that sense. It means that it is there, but it is just like a dream. The dream also has a certain reality to it. Swami Maheshanji said a very beautiful thing. He said, sometimes you're dreaming that there is a tiger who is really attacking you, and you are cornered, and he is coming into the room, and you are in the corner, and you have nowhere to go, and now you're getting so scared, and so on and so forth. And then finally, just as he pounces on you, your eyes wake up. And as a result of this experience, you have a lot of sweat on your face. So somebody said, you have sweat on the face, that means that you're still dreaming. He says, no, I'm not dreaming. It was a result of the previous thing. So there was some experience of the tiger, but there is no reality to it. So similarly here also, once we understand that there is no reality to this, not reality in the sense that it has some apparent, this is the meaning of the word mithya. So mithya doesn't mean non-existence. It doesn't mean total existence. It means some intermediary existence which frightens me, but when analyzed, it disappears. This is the meaning of the word mithya. So when we say that the life has certain meanings to me, then it just means that it up to this point I'm okay, but once I analyze it, I find that there is some reality to it in which the apparent duality will disappear. So that's how we approach it. More to discuss, more to talk about.
Real level, real means the sense of a present lifestyle,
All right.
existence. We have to, it's impossible to just think that this is all, totally.
So it should not be impossible, it should be difficult. So Vedanta doesn't believe in any impossibility. So it's not impossible to believe. It is very natural to believe because I'm so used to seeing things the certain way, but with the help of the Shastra, it says, please wake up. Wake up to the reality for yourself. Don't take yourself as just a jiva. You're more than a jiva. In fact, your absolute reality is the same reality as Paramatma, which is completely free. So please try to understand it, study it, reflect on it, lead a life which is consistent with it, and very soon the limitations of your present life will recede and eventually will completely disappear. So this is the message of the Vedanta. This is of our Ishvara's word. Vedanta doesn't mean somebody wrote it or anything. This is Ishvara's word. Vedas are nothing but Ishvara's word, Apaurushaya. So Ishvara, who's the very father and the very mother of the whole creation, is very anxious that we also understand the reality of yourself. And it's very pleasant. So it says that just wake up from this and you'll be okay. And so, yeah, you're right. It looks very difficult, but don't even start the word impossible. That's not a good word to use. Maybe difficult, yes, that's okay. But eventually we will understand that. The more you study, the more you find that there's a lot of truth in it. So it's interesting. They say that the distinction between pratiti, what appears to be true or may not be true, but what appears to be true, and prama means a certain truth which may not be visible as the truth, is this. The difference between pratiti and prama is this. The closer you get in examining pratiti, the more it disappears. And the closer you get to analyzing prama, the more real it gets. So this is a pratiti, or this is a certain conclusion which is on the surface. And it is just because I have not had a chance to analyze it. I am not equipped to analyze it. No one has told me what that means, except the Shastra. Shastra says, please don't be afraid. You'll be okay. Examine it. Wake up. And if I go closer in examining it, then I begin to see the truth of it. And then that becomes a prama. Pratiti gives rise to prama. So that's how the approach to this whole thing will be. Any other points? Okay, so we'll see you next time.